Welcome back to Extra Shot, the podcast spilling the biggest stories in sport this week. On the pod today, our tribute to Sven, managers on coke, and Jermaine Jenas' sexting spree. We go inside it. My name is Jack. I'm joined as ever by Zach.
Hello, Jack.
Hello. Did you enjoy that sort of gear change?
Just to be clear, they are separate stories.
Yeah, there'll be no Sven on coke stories here. It's a different manager. I guess we should start with that. We've lost I'd say a national and certainly a noughties icon, Sven. You know, a beloved England manager who, I don't know, like there's his football and then there's sort of him as a figure that everyone loved, his charm and his what he represents.
For me, he's the first England manager that I remember. So just the name Sven-Goran Eriksson just brings back a lot of noughties nostalgia.
Yeah. You kicked off that tribute in quite a functional way there. It was quite Michael Owen. You are Sven-Goran Eriksson was the England manager when I was a conscious being.
Sven-Goran Eriksson was appointed England manager in 2001. His reign included 3 major tournaments in which England reached the quarterfinal. I was genuinely sad when I heard the news. Obviously, we sort of knew it was coming sooner or later, but it did kind of take me by surprise, despite that.
Yeah,
and yeah, it's sad. He's a really beloved figure.
It's sort of in the Shane Warne category for me of just loved them. I mean, Shane Warne obviously like the god of his sport, whereas Sven, it's odd. Like he wasn't a particularly successful England manager, right?
Yeah, he reached 3 quarterfinals in 2002, 2004 and 2006.
Born in Torby, Sweden. But, you know, it's just like his charm, his joie de vivre.
Yeah.
And, like, let's be frank, this is the upshot. His general horniness played a factor in my love for him as well. You know, he had some quite sort of fun sex scandals, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, there were some great descriptions of his affairs that came out from the various lovers involved. But I think what also struck me is, like, as he's been sick, the amount of people who've come out who just loved him. Like, all of the players who played under him gave such touching tributes and described him as such a sort of a gentleman, really.
His own documentary that he kind of authorised and was involved in came out on Friday. And actually, I was surprised. I've watched half of it. I'll watch the rest later. Surprised by how much he kind of talked about the scandals.
Yeah, it never seemed like it was something that he was particularly ashamed of or tried to cover up. Like when the Fourier Lam story came out, the affair he had with the secretary at the FA, he told her to sell her story.
Yeah, so she said,
like, go make some money out of it.
Yeah, this is in the doc. So she said, the tabloids have offered me 300 grand. What do you think? And he said, tell your story, go and tell them everything, make some money. Why not? Which is a refreshing attitude.
Yeah, I think he's, I don't know, he always felt like he shouldn't have to talk about his private life in public, which is fair enough. But at the same time, when it all came out, he was sort of just like, yeah, you know what, go for it.
Yeah, Sven's actually not the only charismatic manager who died over the weekend. So Christoph Daum also died. He was only 70. He was the German coach who was all set to get the national team job. He'd shaken hands on it, and then news leaked that he potentially had a bit of a penchant for cocaine, and actually then a German tabloid reported that he'd taken part in a cocaine-fueled orgy in Cologne.
Yeah, I think that part of it was never really confirmed, but that was the story that was going around in the tabloids, and it obviously kicked off this big scandal and kind of a feud with Uli Hoeneß, the Bayern president, who I think he'd had quite a long-term rivalry with. And then the German FA ended up, I think they wanted him to do a drug test, and he just came out and was like, look, I have nothing to hide. I will gladly give you a hair sample. Like, please just do this. Gave them a hair sample, tested was it for cocaine. Uli Hoeneß came out and was like, man, this guy set a new toxicology record.
I love the idea that there's like Top Gear style chart on the wall in the toxicology lab, being like strongest samples.
Christoph Daum goes straight to the top.
A record.
Yeah,
I'll never understand why he took that test.
Yeah,
because didn't he then kind of protested and was like, there's something wrong with the lab, I'll do my own test. It's like, give up the game.
Yeah.
And then he said, I'm being blackmailed by criminals and prostitutes, which I always thought just made him look more guilty, because why is he familiar with criminals and prostitutes? Why are you being blackmailed by these people? What have you done? Yeah, so he, that kind of finished him in Germany as a manager, didn't he? And then he went to Romania, where he had the national team job in Romania, and then got into an argument with the press and told them all that he was more Romanian than they were.
Yeah, it was a great quote.
Really enjoyed it.
It's been a sad weekend for friends of this podcast.
So obviously the other big news is Oasis reunion. Not technically a sports story, but we'll get there. Are you going to go for tickets?
I will try, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like it's going to be like trying to get Glastonbury tickets or something.
I think worse. 2.5 million people went for Oasis tickets in '95 when they did Nebworth, and I think it'll be more now because they spanned a bigger age range.
Back then they were playing pretty often, I guess, whereas now it's
they
haven't played for such a long time. Yeah,
I think it's going to be hard. Everyone's trying their own angles. I saw Neil Warnock tweeted being like, "Enjoy it, but enjoy it by being fucking disciplined," which, like, in my opinion, was him batting his eyelids at Noel and Liam.
Yeah, maybe if there's any listeners out there who can sort us out, then please do.
Oh, now we're doing it too.
It's just a little plea. But
I will do.
You know who I reckon will be front of the queue? Wojciech Szczęsny.
Was not expecting that answer.
So did you see he retired this week? Which, you know, he announced his retirement on the same day that Oasis announced that they were getting back together, and it turns out that Wojciech Szczęsny's 2 kids are called Liam and Noelia.
Noelia. So he had a girl, and call her Noel.
I think, I presume, unless it's just a coincidence. But George pointed out to me that Szczęsny's career has perfectly coincided with Oasis's time being split. Yeah, so his career has lasted 15 years, and he made his debut just after they broke up, and he's now announced his retirement on the day that they
surely he's getting a ticket. I think.
I mean, I'm wondering whether he heard that they were getting back together and just like, all right, fuck this, sack off the football, gonna go full time do the tour. Oasis head. Yeah,
I think if you're naming your kids after them, that is the kind of commitment that deserves.
He should get a backstage pass, surely.
I'm actually off to change my son's name by deed poll. Or the other band members I can name him after. Alan White. Bonehead. Yeah, I'm going to call him Bonehead, obviously. I'm going to start calling him Bonehead and see how it goes. See if I get a ticket. Before I put it in writing.
What's the other middle name that you were going to give him?
Oh, well, he's already now got the first name Watkins after Ollie Watkins' semi-final heroics. So luckily I never gave him a middle name, so there's quite a lot of space, but it's rapidly being taken up.
Bonehead.
Watkins Bonehead. Shlomo Rivlin, yeah. We are running out of space in that name, but I'm willing to chuck in a couple more. Can't think who for. Well, good on Wojciech Szczęsny for that.
Yeah, let's hope it all pays off. If he doesn't get tickets, then
I would give him mine,
really
but it's dog eat dog out there. You can't be helping people out.
Yeah, no. One man who will definitely not be getting anywhere near a free ticket is Jermaine Jenas. So just after Extra Shot was released last week, news broke that Jermaine had been sacked by the BBC after sending, in their words, inappropriate messages to his colleagues at the One Show. So we're presumably these messages were pervy. We don't know exactly what he did.
I'm hearing like pervy messages to makeup artists and other stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
I mean, presumably it was pretty bad because the BBC decided to waive their traditional 30-year grace period for badly behaved presenters.
Well, just sacked him on the spot.
Just sacked him on the spot, which for the BBC is pretty...
Yeah, no dick pics as far as we're aware.
Yeah, we don't know, really. Yeah. We don't know. So obviously he's been dropped now by Match of the Day, by the One Show. His agents have dropped him as well. And, you know, obviously this is really bad. Like, whether or not there were dick pics involved is a bad thing to do, and he deserves to be sacked. But I do think there is something slightly funny about it being his one-show colleagues. Like, the one show is really not the vibe to be doing that. Like, imagine he's just coming off air after interviewing someone who's grown Britain's largest courgette, or some minor EastEnders character who's taught their dog to do the cha-cha or something, and then, you know, getting back to the green room to fire out these grumpy texts.
It's a family show.
It's a family show.
Do you think on Match of the Day it would have been more legit?
Rest is football, maybe.
Yeah.
You get away with that.
What else does he do? He presents Formula E.
Yeah.
Oh, and he does TalkSport. For me, it's more, maybe that is okay at TalkSport.
Yeah,
they sacked him.
They've said that there are no plans for him to present in the near future. I think he was on air when the news broke. He was presenting a show with friend of the pod Jermaine Pennant, who knows a thing or two about tabloid scandals. Sadly, though, they ignored the whole thing, which, you know, was a bit of a missed opportunity. It also meant that we didn't see a repeat of the time Gus Poyet learned that he'd been sacked by Brighton whilst live on the BBC.
Oh, yeah. We got a clip.
We've got a clip of it here.
So he was doing the halftime coverage for like a World Cup game, wasn't it?
Confederations Cup.
Oh, right.
And Mark Chapman just broke the news to him.
And we will look more at that first half during half-time, but we're going to start half-time by talking about Gus, because it's been a slightly odd first 45 minutes for those of us in the studio, and particularly for Gus, because after 3.5 years as Brighton manager, whilst we've been on air this evening, Gus has been told that his contract has been terminated with Brighton and Hove Albion Football Club. And you found out, Gus, by the production team printing the statement off and me handing it to you.
Well, I think BBC got a great story, no, for forever, really, because the manager getting the information that this is being released from his employment by the BBC.
Yeah, the look on his face is so good when Chappers obviously gives his little spiel, and then it cuts to Gus Poyet and he's just like nodding with like that look on his.
He's just shaking his head. he looks so sad.
Resigned is the word I'd use.
After 3.5 years, he'd been there.
Why didn't they just tell him? I never understand those sackings. Quite often managers seem to get sacked and find out from the press.
Yeah, surely just give him a call before.
Yeah, brutal.
Yeah. Actually, it reminded me. Speaking of pundits being sacked, of another story about Robbie Earle. Robbie Earle, he used to be on ITV quite a lot, and now he does a lot of the NBC coverage. And he was sacked in 2010 by ITV in the middle of the 2010 World Cup. So he'd been given out all of these free complimentary tickets to dish out to his family and friends. And then during the Netherlands against Denmark match, 36 blonde models turned up, all dressed in matching orange miniskirts and these T-shirts promoting Bavaria beer. And they got kicked out of the stadium because you're not allowed to do these promotion things. And all of the tickets got traced back to Robbie Earle.
Do you think he just met them in a bar the night before? I was like, oh, you can have my tickets.
Yeah, just all these supermodels.
Who's giving Robbie Earle 36 tickets and then just letting him on the loose? Yeah. Is that just an immediate sacking, yeah?
I guess so, yeah. Anyway, back to Jenas. So he gave an interview with The Sun over the weekend, sort of telling his side of the story, kind of a crisis management kind of thing. And they asked him about how his wife had reacted to this news. And he said, well, she's absolutely raging.
Like you forgot to do the bins.
Yeah, like, no shit, she's raging. But yeah,
that's like I left the toilet seat up again.
She's absolutely raging. Yeah.
To be fair, what do you say? I think I'd be like, leave my wife out of it.
Yeah.
It felt a bit like a show trial confession to me, that video. Like obviously he's done wrong and he's chosen that way to manage it, but like just being filmed in your kitchen talking to The Sun. I don't know, it's proper, like, they really go for the whole shame angle, don't they? Yeah,
I mean, to be fair, he's probably handled it the right way in terms of coming out and just being like, yeah, I really fucked up, I'm sorry. As opposed to the Luis Rubiales approach of, that's the Spanish FA chief who kissed Jenny Hermoso, you remember, who instead sent his mum off to barricade herself in the church on hunger strike.
That was creative.
Complaining there was a witch hunt against her son. Can't imagine Jermaine doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think
sending off his dad Dennis, who actually fun fact about Dennis Jenas, Jermaine's dad. He changed their family's name by deed poll from Jenas with a G to Jenas with a J because he wanted his initials to be DJ.
That is really good. You can kind of understand it. It's cool initials.
It is cool initials. And then JJ as well. It's cool for Jermaine. Had it all planned out.
It's quite a big part of Jenas' brand, actually, being JJ.
JJ, yeah. Actually, another clip that's been doing the round since the whole Jenas affair was from a few years ago. He went on that Michael McIntyre show where, they take a celebrity's phone and they text something to everyone in their contact list. So Jermaine was on it and they sent a picture of him topless working out in the gym to everyone in his contacts, and this clip didn't age very well.
Everyone you know is going to receive that photo. When you look at that, who are you most worried about it going to?
Ellie's mum.
Should we send that to everybody in JJ's phone? Enya QJ, One Show. Who is that?
She's one of the producers on the One Show.
Well, she's just said, I'm sending this to HR.
Actually, funny enough, while Jermaine was on air on his TalkSport show, he recalled another story of a time he was sacked in a pretty brutal fashion. So while he was at Tottenham, at the training ground, apparently they had these like fingerprint gates that you had to show your fingerprint to get through the door. And over the summer, there'd kind of been some rumours that, maybe he was on his way out, but nothing was confirmed, hadn't had talks with any clubs, and came into the training ground one day, put his finger on the thing, and it was just flashing up red with like error. And he's like, oh no, it must be something up here, like cleaning his finger, putting it on again, error. And he like looks over to the reception and everyone's just like covering their face, just like no one will make eye contact with him, and he goes over it. They all know. And it turned out Andre Villas-Boas had decided he was out.
But again, is that how you tell players they're gone?
Yeah.
Also, Jenas had been there a while, hadn't he?
He'd been there, I think like 8 years or something.
Brutal.
Yeah.
I guess that is just the world of football.
Yeah.
I feel like they could just call him. Even a text.
Yeah. So he's had 2 brutal sackings. Probably one slightly more deserved than the other.
Yeah, probably. Now, last week we talked about all the Manchester-based stars who fled the city, complaining that their sun-starved children had turned grey. I forgot to mention a really big one, which is David De Gea, whose wife went on a talk show in Spain and said that Manchester looked like the back of a fridge. Which, I mean, I love Manchester, but that is a funny description of anywhere.
Oh, and you can really picture it, all of the sort of like grey pipes and sort of covered in detritus and like cobwebs.
It's pretty brilliant, I think. So I guess she actually was pretty happy that David finally fled that dystopian hellscape. Because obviously he fucked off last year. And everyone's been kind of wondering what's going on with him because he's 34, he didn't retire. I mean, I think basically he spent the last year organising his sock drawer and feeding the ducks in the local park, waiting for the call from Al Hilal or Al Nasser in Saudi. Saudis never came, which I found odd, but salvation did come from Fiorentina. And David got a one-year deal, headed off to Tuscany. Seemed like quite a nice swan song. I think that's the sort of move you'd be hoping for in his shoes.
The back of an Arga rather than a...
Well, it's quite nice, isn't it, Florence? It's about the opposite.
Yeah.
About as far from the back of a fridge as you can get. If architecture's your priority, which turns out it is. Unfortunately, the debut's not gone too well. So Fiorentina chucked him in for their Conference League qualifier against Hungarian giants Puskás Akademia. And unfortunately, David conceded twice in the first 12 minutes and again in the 89th. He conceded a penalty as well. And his side stumbled to a 3-3 draw. And that's it. He's now been dropped from the first 11 for Fiorentina.
Okay.
Which, a bit of a sad.
Yeah, I mean, he must be pretty rusty, really, if he's...
And he is a bit of a Joe Hart, isn't he? Like, the game's slightly evolved beyond his style of shot-stopping.
not good enough with his feet.
He's not good with his feet, can't play out from the back.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know, I'm not exactly sure what's going on with him. He looks increasingly like a bloke who's sleeping in his car, I think, which, to be fair, is something we get a lot. So I feel I can dish out that insult.
He has always slightly had that look. He's quite gaunt.
Yeah, he's gaunt and got a beard.
The beard.
It looks a bit like he's been hitting the pipe, I think. Oh, mate! Anyway, still, I guess his wife certainly doesn't want to go back to Manchester, and probably he doesn't want to go back to United anyway, because the new owner, Jim Ratcliffe, is doing his best to make Old Trafford absolutely miserable. Ratcliffe's on a big cost-cutting drive. So last season, at the end of the season, he culled 250 staff, which will presumably allow him to fund another 20 minutes of Anthony's pay packet. You know, this is just general club staff. We're not talking about players and coaches. Anyway, for the survivors, Ratters is now ramping up the torment. So according to staff who work on match days at Old Trafford, the penny-pinching chairman has scrapped their traditional match day lunchbox. So they used to get sandwich, crisps, cereal bar and a soft drink.
That's quite
solid.
Yeah.
But instead they're now being fed the leftovers from the corporate buffets. So it's sort of like scavenging through stale scraps of prawn sandwich and half-eaten vol au vents.
When do they get the scraps? Do they have to go into the sort of go in there and just like pick through?
What, when there's the skin has formed on the sticky toffee pudding? Okay, so United claim that they have been making extra portions for staff, and actually it's because the lunchboxes get left over, but staff say it's leftovers, so choose your fighter. I know who mine is. But it's actually worse than that, because they've also barred the staff from the players' canteen, and they've dispatched them to a charming new dining area in the bogs. One employee told the press, "They've set up a dining table next to 4 toilet cubicles. You come out the cubicle and someone's sat right in front of you eating," which is lovely.
Just imagining all these staff coming out with their T-shirt like filled up with half-eaten prawn sandwiches, just the crusts and
the little honey mustard sausages, Yorkshire puddings with a bit of beef on them.
Yeah.
So I should give United's side of the story. I'll give them some of it. They say the room is adjacent to the bogs, which I guess is a
Same
bit better.
thing, really,
but
yeah.
Doesn't sound like there's a door. And they say, we have been cooking extra portions of the corporate food. But yeah, pretty miserable place. Also, it was always Alex Ferguson's thing that all the staff ate with the players. It's like quite a big part of his, like, you know, I know everyone who works in this club. We all work together. So it's quite an odd thing, I think, to scrap, but... You know,
unless they're also getting Anthony and Co to sit outside the Portaloos with their...
I mean, not yet, but
yeah.
time will come. It just seems odd because you could literally just like buy one less shit player and all these... Like, how much money are you actually saving with this?
On cereal bars and sandwiches, yeah.
Frosties bars.
Yeah, just... yeah.
Freddos have gone up in price, in fairness.
Coaching a kids' football team is a pretty thankless task. You're spending your weekend cowering from the drizzle in some bog-ridden park, scraping dog shit off kids' boots while their parents berate you for not using overlapping wing-backs. And it seems like World Cup heroes are not immune from those derails either. So the German legend Lothar Matthäus, he's Germany's most capped player, he captained them to victory in the 1990 World Cup.
Won the Ballon d'Or, didn't he?
He won the Ballon d'Or. He's like absolutely legend in Germany. Last week, he's resigned from his role as the coach of an under-13s football team because of abuse from the parents. So he says, "I spend the whole day on the phone, have to listen to everything I'm doing wrong. Everyone's child doesn't play enough." So it sounds like these parents have just been doing his head in.
And are these is this like an elite youth team, or is this just...
I think it's the one that his son plays in.
It's just his local
It's just
park.
just a local park team, I think. To be fair, though, you can't blame the parents for being a little bit suspicious of Lothar's intentions. Do you remember in our German football episode, we did a story about a German youth team? It's like an under-10s coach who turned out to be a Russian spy.
Yeah.
And this was part of his cover. So he'd use the team's end-of-season barbecues to pass state secrets to his Russian handlers.
Well, so the handler would have another kid in the team or something? It would.
I guess so. Yeah, they'd be digging through the bratwurst, and beneath them all there'd be a little vial of Novichok.
Or mercury on the chessboard.
Yeah. She reminds me of the screenshot we read out a few months ago from a group chat of parents for an under-8s football team. And it read, "That was damn embarrassing. There's been no progression in 3 odd months. We need to work in 2s or 3s, creating triangle/vertical possession to move forward. We need to interchange positions, so if a defender moves forward, someone goes back and vice versa. Please watch any football match and assess how everything is trigonometry-based."
Trigonometry
based. It's like,
it's got its protractor out.
This is an under-8s football team.
Sokotoa. That's all I remember about trigonometry. Don't think it helps in under-8s football.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
is that guy just had like brain worms from like the XG stuff on Twitter?
I guess so, yeah. Yeah, he spent too much time watching Gary Neville berating Erik ten Hag.
Yeah, it is savage under
Just
children's football, isn't it?
Yeah, just ask Lothar Matthäus. He's been putting up with that kind of thing, it sounds like. Actually, it reminded me also of the time Andre Mariner, the Premier League referee, got kicked out of his kids' under-9s match for abusing the ref.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Peter Crouchwell says that Andre Mariner asked people to call him Dre.
Yeah.
Which I think he denies, but it's really good. Didn't Pep Guardiola also... He took that sabbatical after Bayern Munich where he went to New York for a year and I think he managed his kids' team. And didn't he say he was getting loads of grief from parents who had no idea who he was?
Yeah, they were just abusing him from the sidelines.
Yeah, being like, this guy knows nothing about trigonometry.
No, I think it was actually he stepped into ref. I think that was it. He stepped into ref a kids' match in New York, and the parents were just berating him from the sidelines.
I can't imagine Pep would let a game flow if he was reffing. To be fair,
yeah. I can imagine he'd
so intense.
Yeah, he'd be. I can pass it out from back.
Yeah, I think he'd really ruin it, actually. I can see it now.
You'd be forgiven for forgetting the name Christopher Claesson. It never really went to plan for the Norwegian keeper at Leeds. He made 6 appearances in 3 years for them. So when he bagged a move to Polish side Rakow Częstochowa this summer, his career was at a bit of a crossroads, really. He didn't exactly endear himself to the fans when he turned up to his first press conference and described the move as a step down. And from there, it went from bad to worse. So on his first day, Christopher rocked up 8 kilos overweight, and the manager banished him from training until he shed the pounds. I think he just spent his last summer in Yorkshire just gorging on curd tarts and chip butties.
Wigan kebabs.
Yeah.
My favourite. Wigan kebab is, what is it? It's a pie in...
It's a pie in a bap.
A bap
thing.
or a bun or palm, whatever you call it.
Then deep fried, maybe? Nah.
Is it deep fried as well?
Nah, maybe not. Should be.
Wigan kebab.
It's your trick. Anyway, after that quite embarrassing start, I think the gaffer probably was expecting to see Christopher, wrapped in bin bags on the treadmill, popping his Zempics. But unfortunately, he had a slightly different approach. So a few days later, Częstochowa fans spotted Christopher at McDonald's in the town centre. I'm picturing him just, hunched over this grease-stained counter, surrounded by mukpierogi boxes. And, the club have torn up his contract now after 37 days.
Because he was at McDonald's, basically.
I think it's not a good look, really,
Yeah,
when they've asked you to shed the pounds and then a couple of days later, fans spot you in McDonald's.
I was having one of the salads on a fruit box. Yeah. Aren't the salads actually worse than the burgers or something?
They have the highest salt content, I think, of anything on the menu.
If you've been told to lose weight, literally the worst place on earth to be spotted next is McDonald's.
I am curious what they have in McDonald's Poland.
She could be different.
Well, they normally have all these regional specialities.
Like in India, they had to make the McSpicy was considered not spicy enough, so they had to introduce the McSpicy spicy. Really good.
I saw in China they have a mashed potato burger.
What's it?
It's like a burger. It's a burger, like regular burger, but it has a layer of mashed potato.
So there is meat in there. It's a bit like having a hash brown in your burger.
I guess so.
That sounds pretty good.
Could be good, yeah. But yeah, if anyone's in Poland, then let us know what the regional specialities are there.
Maybe some sort of dumpling.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Say mukpierogis.
Oh, is pierogi the name of the dumpling?
Yeah, that's the dumpling things. Actually, it reminded me of a story we did a couple of years ago about Joris Glanon, the French centre-back who signed for Saint Etienne and turned up, I think he was 20 kilos overweight, and on his first day, one of his teammates mistook him for the training ground security guard. He just thought it was like the doorman.
Yeah, 20 kilos is a lot.
20 kilos is a lot. And if you look at the picture from then, he is looking quite chubby. He'd actually also already been sacked by Sevilla for being severely overweight.
Right.
So
took a chance on him.
Yeah.
What's he up to now?
I think he's retired. St Etienne was his last club.
Okay.
He's just in McDonald's in Czestochowa with Christopher Claassen, I think.
Tucking into a
McPierogies and McFlurries, yeah.
The US election, it's obviously only a couple of months away. And, you know, it's a big time for other political operatives who have climbed the greasy pole thanks to years of lonely stump speeches and having doors slammed in their face. But, you know, for most people who've climbed that pole, still after the election, the best job they can hope for in an administration is counting tamarisk leaf beetles in the Department of Agriculture. So there were a few jealous glances the other day when Donald Trump touted none other than retired golfer Sir Nick Faldo for a role in his administration if he wins. And, you know, it got me wondering, like, what is it that Donald sees in the 67-year-old? Is it Nick's shrewd vision to undermine Chinese trade tariffs? Maybe it's his impressive tally of marriages. Actually, it turns out that Trump is a keen admirer of the current Mrs. Faldo, Nick's, quote, beautiful wife, Lindsay, who is a former topless dancer and Mrs. Conservative USA. Love that it's Mrs.
Yeah, it's so good.
Really good. Lindsay, the other thing you need to know about her is she can't remember how many times she's been married. I think it's 6, but she's not sure.
Did she announce that at the Mrs. Conservative USA Awards?
How does that play?
Yeah.
Look, as long as you're married.
Yeah.
Anyway, Lindsay and Nick popped up at Donald Trump's campaign rally in Montana last week, and the Republican candidate had some words to say about Nick.
Golfers in the history of... I'm a golfer. I love golf. This guy is a major golfer. He's a major friend of mine. One of the best ever. They knighted him in England or in UK, and he just knew how to win. He could take people and he'd play the best players in the world, and they always folded in front of him. In fact, I think I'm going to bring him into government because we like to get other people to fold. And his nickname is Faldo, but he's really, because he makes everyone, but his name is Faldo. Nick Faldo and his beautiful wife, Lindsay. Where is Nick?
What is he? It just makes no sense. He's just rambling.
It's really
his name is Faldo, but his name is Faldo.
Also, I assumed that he'd just come up with that Faldo thing like, on the hoof, but it's actually even funnier because it turns out that in the 1980s, during Faldo's like peak of his career, he was given the Faldo nickname because he kept choking in major tournaments and losing. So can't imagine he's loving the Faldo thing. Lindsay, by the way, is the 4th Mrs. Faldo. And I had to sort of look through the chronicle of Mrs. Faldo's. Of his first marriage, Nick said, "We were happily married for 8 months. Unfortunately, we were married for 4.5 years."
Savage.
Yeah, he left that wife for his secretary, who later called him socially a 24 handicapper. And she probably said that because he left her for a 20-year-old student who then, they were together for a couple of years, but she then caught him cheating and smashed up his Porsche using his golf clubs. And right afterwards, the press got hold of Faldo to ask him, like, you know, is everything okay? And he said, "I was just praying she didn't use my best clubs. You should have heard me sigh with relief when I found out she picked up an old wedge I'd left lying in the garage." That's your first response.
I'm starting to see what it is that Donald Trump sees in him.
Colourful character. All right, well, I think that is all we've got time for. Keep sending in your stories at Upshot Towers. Share us in your WhatsApp groups. We're having a bit of a surge audience-wise, so thanks a lot for listening. Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
See you soon.